Okay, great. Well, my name is Stephanie Avellino, and I am so thankful to have you guys here. I'm so thankful for Marta, and I'm so thankful for Michael's work and everyone who was involved in developing the Warburg treatment. I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of myself. I don't want to take up all the time here. I definitely want you to hear from other people. I was diagnosed with endometrial cancer in December of 2024. And within the same week, my husband was diagnosed with stomach cancer. And he has a rare form of stomach cancer that is called a stromal tumor. And we began a journey together, but on two different paths. Stromal tumors are treated much differently than endometrial cancer. And we my initial decision was to reach out to Dr. Sandra Bavacqua. She is an integrative specialist, PhD in molecular biology, and I knew of her through many different people who have been helped by her. And so I reached out to her to find out, like, hey, what can I do? Because I knew I wanted to be integrative, and I was very concerned about going to Fox Chase. I'm in the Philadelphia area, going to Fox Chase and being, given all these things that I need to do. And I kind of wanted a game plan going into it ahead of time. My background is I've been a holistic coach for the last 15 years, and I've been in health education for over 30 years. So I knew enough that I knew I needed to get a game plan ahead of time before talking to my surgeon and the various doctors at Fox Chase. And so I did. I went out in January. I set up an appointment with the surgeon because I did have a 5 centimeter tumor. No, is it 5 cent? I think it was 5 centimeters. They say the size of a baseball in my uterus, and it was cancerous. They did not know at that point whether it had metastasized. And so in um, January, I went out to Tucson, Arizona, because that is also where Dr. Bavacqua is, which was so providential that it's like the same town where Martha lives. And I had an RGCC done. And an RGCC, I'm sure Michael or Dr. Navarro might be able to tell you even more about it. But an RGCC is a cancer panel, and they took my blood and they sent it to the UK. And this cancer panel gave Dr. Bavacqua like several page report on all the different nutraceuticals, chemotherapies, and different things that would be effective against my particular cancer. And so that was super helpful going into the Warburg treatment. And there's a lot of different chemotherapy. Not everybody knows that chemotherapy is just a general term for a lot of different types of pharmaceuticals that they can use. And so they found two chemotherapies that would be effective with my cancer. And what I really appreciate was not just that, okay, there's a lot of science to back up what the Warburg treatment does, but there were humans, people that I could talk to. And Dr. Bavacqua was super helpful in answering my billion questions. Um, Part of my occupation makes it very difficult not to have 10 questions for every answer. And I knew I needed to do the hysterectomy, but in all honesty, I was trying to avoid it. And so going in January was just a beautiful pivotal point for me to really get the answers I needed to have Dr. Bavacqua send my blood to the UK and get that RGCC panel. And then to be like, yes, this is the right decision for me to go get this hysterectomy. And so the hysterectomy was end of January. and I got on a very aggressive protocol that Dr. Bavacqua provided, that both was nutraceutical and as well as doing other approaches like infrared sauna and a very an alkaline diet, no sugar. We don't want to feed the cancer. And so it's just really important for a lot of people to understand that cancer is there's no magic bullet for cancer. It is very treatable, especially if it's caught early. But most cancers, well, okay, my cancer, I can't talk about most cancers, but I've heard from other stories that there's a lot of different cancers that respond really well to sort of a multifaceted approach where we're doing nutrition, we're doing mental health, stress, managing stress, and also even using, things like the Warburg treatment or even nuances to chemotherapy. So it definitely needing to kind of attack it at different places and with different approaches. So then in April, I went to we flew into Tucson, Arizona. My husband came with me. Marta was super helpful. She communicated to me constantly, answered all my questions. She drove us from our hotel in Tucson into Nogales, Mexico, and was such a blessing. And I know it was especially important for my husband because, this was outside the box. This, we weren't following our Fox Chase doctor's recommendations. So, he was first trusting me, but then also it was beautiful that Marta was so willing to answer his questions. And so then we drove into Nogales, and I got to meet Dr. Garcia, who's also here. So I'm so glad to see him. And got to meet the other doctor there and got to meet the wonderful staff. It's a beautiful clinic. And then we got started. And we also did a conference call. Marta and Dr. Bavacqua talked, and Dr. Bavacqua, explained to her the RGCC panel and the recommendations. And so that was also really beautiful to be on that as well, to see to see two people working together to help me come up with an effective solution. And I couldn't be more thankful. Before the surgery, my ovarian cancer marker was at 767, and in June it was at 47. And that is like not only normal, it's considered the lower part of normal. And then that's called the HE4, and then the CA125, or is it the other way around? Starting to get them confused. But there's another cancer marker that was also very high. It was almost 200, and I think it was like, I'm starting to forget the numbers now. That's crazy. Yeah, it was maybe one like around above 150, and then it was at 7 after in June. And so I know that that drastic change. It was so awesome to see on the blood work, this just like downward slide. And I sent it to Marta, and she's like, "Can I share that?" Because that was so cool. And they're not using the word remission. I think oncologists don't like that word, especially so quickly. But we're obviously going to keep an eye on it. I'm staying on my protocol. The other thing about cancer is all the lovely medical bills you get. And it doesn't matter whether you have insurance or not. If you have insurance, it's almost like the bill is even bigger, and the insurance company covers this huge amount, and then you're still left with a huge amount. So our family, we've done both sides of it. We've done with no insurance, and we've really seen how and this is a US problem. I don't know what it's like in Mexico or other countries, but this is definitely a huge US problem. And so I am learning a lot about navigating the financial side of this and what, and doing the Warburg treatment made all the difference. The treatments that they would have recommended would have been potentially in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And my part of it, my hysterectomy was $100,000 and I'm paying 50,000 of that, supposedly. We're on a payment plan. So anyways, I am just so thankful for Marta, so thankful for the Warburg treatment. And I am super excited to share this with whoever is willing to listen. And I just met Dr. Navarro, and I am so excited to hear that doctors are listening. And so I hope he will share a little bit, but I will introduce you to Marta. She is a wonderful human being, and I want her to tell you how she got started in this crazy adventure. And I am just so thankful for her. So, Marta, tell
Thank
us
you.
about you and about your clinic in Nogales.
I sure will. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I think all of us start investigating or researching cancer when it actually touches our lives. You hear this all the time, but when do you really start looking? It's when it touches you. So, in my experience, my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer in her early 30s. Um, I'm lucky enough to have my own business, so it was easier for me to travel and be with her. So I got to really be on the patient side with my sister, learning, helping, you know, just going through that and how it affects, affected her and affected her family. She had a mastectomy done, and one of the things that was recommended was that she do radiation. And she decided against that. She decided against that having two small children and her husband. And she also said, if something happens to me, you take care of my kids. So, it's very hard when you hear that this is what you need to do. And because of her research, she decided she would not do that. As I research more, I understood and I respect that. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm so scared. I'm going like, what if this comes back? So that happens in October. And then in May, my mother-in-law gets cancer. So now all of a sudden I've become the cancer expert and the one that speaks English in the family. So I'm, it's like you take care of this. So again, I'm involved in her care and in her surgeries, et cetera, and learn more about cancer. When my mother-in-law, the day she got out of the hospital, there was actually a party happening at my house that I was going to cancel. And my mother-in-law said, no, don't cancel it. And I'm so happy I didn't because at that party was Dr. Linda Mitol, who is one of the inventors of the Warburg Way. She is one of the smartest women I know. Unfortunately, she is helping care for her ex-husband at the moment, so she cannot be on this video. But Mike Pennington, who is also one of the inventors of the Warburg Way, is here with us if you have any questions. And Linda tells me about the Warburg Way and how Dr. Chong Sang was another one of the inventors, went to China to take this as a learning experience, like sharing in the learning in China, because they would be more open than they were here at the US. So when they did this, and I don't know the exact details, but I know it was like, bravo, bravo, you guys did great. But it also showed that nobody would make money with us because we use medicines that are not patented anymore. They've been on the market, so they're, rather inexpensive when you look at new medicines being in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You use insulin, just regular insulin, uh, to do the treatment. And well, I'll explain a little bit more about the treatment, but you're really looking at medicines that are inexpensive, that don't have a patent. So if somebody goes to do this treatment, get all the FDA approval so that it can be done everywhere, you're spending, I think it was like $13 million, but you won't make any money because you can't, you don't have a new medicine. So it's like Bravo kind of gets put under the table. And, with Tom's experience, I know one of the reasons he got or started researching this was also for family ties with his family. Um, breast cancer with his family, and actually his mom is one of our patients. So he has helped his aunt and mother. So I think, cancer touches all of us in a very uh, direct way. So that was, Linda said, we're doing this in China, explains everything, and said, we'd like to have it closer because everybody we know and love is in this area, but we can't do this treatment. Can we do this in Mexico? Can you introduce us to, hospitals there, et cetera, et cetera? So I made all the arrangements to introduce them to different hospitals in Nogales. And, a lot of the doctors were extremely skeptical, especially when we would say, we're going to get their blood sugar down. They're like, nah, you can't do that. So they come into my office. It's a dental clinic and a medical spa. And they look around and they're like, Martha, you can do this here. And, I was right. My sister was saying, I'm not going to do radiation. And what if the cancer came back? This was a solution for her. My mother-in-law had just had cancer. I mean, I was right for the moment. And I said, let's do it. That was a little bit over 7 years ago. And here we are, 7 years later. We've done over 1,000 treatments of Warburg Way, all safe. We have helped almost 100 patients to this day. And every single patient, except for two, and I wouldn't even count them as not helping because they only had one treatment each. So I don't think I can count them as a failure because I don't think they had a full course of treatment. But every other patient that we've treated has had benefits. And these benefits can be as simple as being able to get up, being able to move, being able to eat, being hungry, being able to nourish themselves, um, expanding the lifespan that they were given by their doctors. We have patients that come in that were given, 2 more weeks to live. Some of those are still alive. We have patients that, couldn't get up to make a cup of coffee, to warm up their soup. And after 2 weeks of treatment, she was helping her husband that was diagnosed with kidney cancer get better. So we have so many stories. I am not a medical doctor, so I may not have some of the answers or all the science behind it. But when I don't know it, I always go to Linda, Mike, and Tom, to Dr. Navarro, to, Ernesto, which is here with us. He is a nurse. He's not a doctor. He's a nurse. He's one of our nurses. To Dr. Espino, I have the means to go to people that know more. And I also have the advantage of being able to learn and absorb and put things together. So I can put people together, people where they need to be, people that can answer their questions. And that's one of the, that's really my role in the Warburg Way. Answer questions, getting people to the right place. And the Warburg Way it's simple. It really goes back to basics. It goes back to the basic principle that cancer needs sugar to live. And one of the reasons it's called the Warburg Way is in honor of Otto Warburg, which discovered one of the hallmarks of cancer, that cancer needs sugar to survive. So the way that Warburg Way works is that during the treatment, a patient will come in fasting, so their blood sugar will be lower than their normal range. We will use regular insulin to lower their sugar even more, in the 50s, 30s. And most doctors will be like, oh my gosh, shocked, and run away. But we have a doctor here, Dr. Navarro. That's one of the few doctors that did not run away. And you'll hear from him in just a little bit. Once the person is in that state, which takes about 20 minutes to be in, we will use chemotherapies that are off patent, therefore less expensive, which I think is important because the Warburg Way, not being FDA approved, et cetera, will not be covered by insurance. So it will be an out-of-pocket cost. So it's important to keep our costs down, and it's important to know which medicines to use. And the scientists the medicines that they use are not going to be a medicine that was just invented that's in the millions, thousands of dollars. They're going to use medicines that will work in a certain life cycle of the cell so that we can kill the cells when they're dividing, like in their initial process. And then we can also hit the cells in their full life cycle. And that part is important. Only about 1/10 of a chemotherapy regular dose that you would be given in a regular chemotherapy is done with Warburg. Therefore, less drug, less side effects. Also, because of the way that it is done, we have already put those cancer cells in a situation where they're starving, where they're weak. Some of them will just die off because they need 20 to 200 times more sugar than regular cells. So some of them will just die off on their own. And then with a little chemo, like I said, about 1/10, we can hit those cancer cells. So, you can pretty much kill the same amount of cancer cells that you would with a lot of chemo that's also going to affect the rest of your body. Therefore, you have better quality of life by doing this treatment. I've talked about some of the benefits that people have. And I guess, one of the biggest, what would you say, the biggest thing that people say is that they, some of them, I can't say we cure cancer, but some of them have had their cancer eliminated. Our patients that have come into us in stage 1 to 3 are all considered at this time either in remission or cancer-free by their oncologist, not by us, but by their oncologist. Unfortunately, most of the patients that come to us are stage 4 patients or patients that have already been referred to hospice. Now, why that happens, the way I see it is because they've run out of options. So then they start investigating and then they find us. A lot of those patients were told about us when they were in stage 2 or 3, but they're like, oh no, my insurance covers everything. So they went the other way. Or they were just like, oh, that's too, out of the box. My oncologist, God says this, this, and this, and this is what I'm going to do. And then they come to us when that oncologist has run out of options, when they've done trials and they haven't worked. And then they're like, oh, I remember somebody told me about Warburg. And then they'll come to us. Again, like I said, all the patients that have come to us except 2 have had benefits. Some of those patients that were hospice, one of my patients, I call her our holiday queen. She came to us October 30th, so close to Halloween, in a wheelchair. Her sister, she was in a hospice. Her sister found out she had cancer. They hadn't spoken for years. She comes to pick her up in Tucson, drives her to Nogales. I have a video of her because if I say it, I will sound like a lunatic. But literally the next day, she walked into the clinic. She walked into the clinic, Halloween. And when I say that, people will look at me like, you're crazy. But this happened, and she talks about her story. So Halloween, she comes into the clinic walking, and Tom was there. Dr. Tom Sang was there. And what she told Tom was, all I want is to be able to have a Thanksgiving with my friends and my family. And Tom said to me, he's like, Martha, she's going to have a great Christmas. But, don't tell her, but she's going to have a great Christmas. So come November, she had lunch with her friends, dinner with her family. Come December, she danced with my husband at our holiday party. Come Valentine's Day, she went back to work. And then come Easter, she was doing good, but there were some things going on with her blood. So she went back to her doctors and they said, you need a blood transfusion. So by Mother's Day, when she came May 6th, she came to the clinic and it was hard to get her blood sugar back. There was something going on. That weekend, she went back to the hospital in Phoenix and they told her, you have cancer. You have stage 4 cancer. There's nothing we can do for you. And she says, well, that's what you told me last October. And here I am. Well, they're like, well, if they're so good in Nogales, why don't you just go back there now? They just gave her, didn't do much. She stayed in the hospital and unfortunately she passed away around Mother's Day. So that's why I call her my holiday queen. It was so hard for me because I thought I was going to save the world and, this was going to be great. So that was a really hard hit for me. And I just like didn't want to do this anymore. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. And I went to see her at the hospital. My daughter was there. And how do you ask somebody that's dying if this is worth it? You know, so how do I ask her? So I turned it around a little and I said, Sharon, do you think what I'm doing is worth it? And she looked at me and she's really sad. And she's like, girl, don't you ever ask yourself that again. She's like, you gave me my life back. I was able to make up with my sister. I got Thanksgiving with my friends. I went back to work. It's a great life. And as soon as I get out of here, we're going to do this all again. And I knew it wasn't going to happen because she couldn't get out of the hospital. And, like it was just not possible. She was already there and they wouldn't let her out. But she made me know that this extra time she had was worth it. And that's why doing the Warburg way is worth it at any stage. Uh, we can't call it a cure, even though, like I've said, people in stage 1 to 3 are cancer free at this time or in remission. But we can call it palliative care. And palliative care is just getting quality of life when you have a life-threatening disease. And it can start at any time. It can start from diagnosis all the way to hospital. But a lot of people will have the misunderstanding that palliative care means hospice care. Palliative means I'm going to die. And it's not. Palliative care is just giving you quality of life. And I believe so much in Warburg giving people quality of life that I dedicated the last 7 years to doing this, despite a lot of obstacles. In order to get started, we had to do so much just to be able to have our clinic certified to be able to get chemotherapy drugs. It's been very hard to find doctors that are open-minded. And you need a doctor to do this, and you need nurses to do this. And, we have been so lucky to have doctors that are open and will do this. We have not been lucky, though, to have an oncologist on board. We have, we've had 4 doctors throughout Warburg Way. 2 of them were emergency doctors. Dr. Espino, who's with us now, he's an emergency doctor. And I think that's so important because they look at you as a whole. And in general, I think that's something that the doctors in Mexico do. They see you as a whole. They see you as a person. You're not just a number. You get your time. You get your questions answered. And the reason that we haven't had oncologists come in is because what they told, one of them was very excited to come to our group, but then he said, I can't do it because if I come, you can only treat people that are in hospital, people that have no other choices. And that's not what I want to do. I want to help everybody because I've seen it help people, when it's stage 1 to 3, like I said, and even in stage 4, and even in hospice where it can turn around. So that's one of the reasons that we don't have an oncologist, and people still need to have their oncologist. One of the things that the Warburg way is great at is killing the metastatic cancer, because that's the one that needs sugar, and that's the basis of our treatment, to have a low dose. But when we get to the point where that cancer is gone and we have cancer that acts more like normal cells, we're kind of stuck. Because you either need surgery to get rid of that, or you need immunotherapy, or you need a really high dose of chemo, which we're not going to do. We're not a hospital, we're a clinic. So we're not going to do the high doses. And that is where, I looked and was like, what else can we do? And we found that NK cells were one of the solutions to help the body boost its energy. And that is where, Dr. Guillermo came in. I see here both Dr. Guillermo Navarro, who has helped us with the NK cells. And I also see Mike Pennington, who is one of the inventors of the Warburg way. So Stephanie, I'll turn it to you. I hope I didn't extend myself, but I'm so passionate about the Warburg Way that I probably lost track of time here.
That's okay. And Linda's here also, just so you
Oh,
know.
wonderful.
Yeah. So, Dr. Navarro, tell us a little bit like how you ended up getting involved.
Well, it's a little bit of a long story, but the reason first was I had a patient with breast cancer, and she wanted to do Warburg Way, so she introduced me to Martha. So this patient was very fond of me, and she was like trying to have like a coach in that regard, and the best way to say it is I had my share of experiences with cancer. My father had anaplastic thyroid cancer, so he was given 6 months to live in Mexico City, one of the biggest hospitals of Mexico City, and I refused to engage in that part and just try to do something else. And we did some therapies that gave my father more time, at least 8 years. And a plastic cancer is one of the cancers that is more aggressive. And by the books, the oncology books, they say only 6 months of life. So that was one of the parts that gave me um, and much more patience, gave me the focus in this part. I'm a pharmacology. I did my medical student for 6 years, and I'm a specialist in pharmacology, and I have a master's degree in pharmacology also. And so, what this took me to this special part of the Warburg Way, and understanding there's cancer is not a one way route. It's a multifactorial uh, disease, but there is some things we have to acknowledge, and that is that how it survives, how it expands, how the growth of the cancer and the different type of cancer. So one, I think there's a myriad of things we should do. Warburg Way is one of the ways that it's have wonderful results. It does wonderful things with the patient. I agree with Marta with the part that most of the times we get stage 3 or stage 4 patients. That it's a very sad because I'm very into the point that if we get patients that were stage 1 or 2, we could do wonderful things, and we maybe we could publish on papers, but that's on the long run. And one of the other things that in my position I started to do was searching for the we can do a lot of things, but I mean, like the type of food you eat, low in your carbohydrates, the glucose, and getting a little bit more of a cetonic bodies is great. But we have now a lot of things like natural, like NKs, like natural killers are part of the immune system. There are the cells that give you both pathways in the immune system, the innate and the acquired immune system. So that cells are protecting us. So one of the ways that I thought we could do something for cancer patients was to increase the power of that in NK cells, natural killer cells. So we started with a company in in a lab in Mexico City. That it's the director is Dr. Alexis Monge, is a very renowned um, geneticist from Mexico City. Has studies from Harvard University, and he's a medical director. And we're starting doing stem cells and other type of things, but mostly for cancer patients, NK cells, natural killer cells from the patient. So right now is the double treatment, that it's their NKs that could treat the cancer, but have right now two pathways. There are new pathways there that we're getting on, and just giving the patient like the super NKs. So the NKs are treated with novilumab and ipilimumab, and they're anti-monoclonal bodies that can potentiate the cells, the NK cells. And that I'm not going to in all the process, but what I can say is it blocks a pathway for the P1 and the CTL that has both of them, the innate that can that makes the NK cells acknowledge the cancer, because cancers come from our cells. So in some point, they can trick the immune system to say, "I'm part of you. Don't attack me." So we restore that part so the NK cells can attack the cancer cells. And the other is that ipilimumab, it's the other type of pathway where you make the NK cells have more life and can expand for more time. So that's another way to get in touch. The Martin and myself, we're treating patients with both, in some ways, both treatments. We have a lot of wonderful outcomes with our patients. And I mean, it's right now it's a little bit more expensive, because doing the genetic part of cloning the cells and putting the this anti-monoclonal bodies on the cells, it's really, it's a little bit of expensive treatment, right? Because we're doing this with genetics and all of that. So, but it has given great results. It's another weapon that we can use uh, to treat cancer and different type of cancer that are getting really difficult. We have a big outcome with patients in all type of cancers, mostly the cancers that are tumoral, like when you can see
So
the tumor. That's the main reason that we do this, because there's a lot of type of cancers. But I mean, there's some merge here that we can do with our patients that could benefit in the long run, and not only think like a palliative treatment, but try to trigger just enough things that could cure in some cases the patient. Obviously, one of the things that we have to do is educate our patients, and that have to know that the first step is to um, get a scan, get a checkup, to know if something's happening, because that gives us the advantages if we can get a cancer in the first stage. So it's a lot of things, but me as a pharmacologist, I know that one of the pathways, and I think it's going to be in the next years a wonderful pathway, just to do something for for our bodies, that our bodies can heal us. Not only a special drug or the new Pfizer drug or the Bayer drug. No, just our ourselves. We have the power to treat cancer. Our bodies have the power to treat cancers, but we have to do it the right way. So we're learning every day, and I'm so happy to be here and to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Navarro. And thank you, Barta. Like, we want to see your passion. We want to see, and it's amazing how many people, doctors, wellness professionals, are finding way more effective applications and treatments because of their backstory. Many of the health professionals and doctors that I've researched, that I've worked with, who've written books, who have amazing approaches to a variety of diseases. There's usually a family member. There's usually a family member and someone they really cared about, or it's their own journey, And so that just makes your stories all the more powerful because we don't want to be a number. When we get that diagnosis, we want to know that the person who is guiding us and giving us information really cares about the journey and not just uh, you know looking at us one dimensionally. And I really appreciate that holistic perspective. Um, Marta, can you introduce Mike and Linda, and they can kind of tell us a little bit of how they developed the Warburg treatment? I'd love to give a chance for questions. And so I don't know if Mike and Linda can keep it concise, but I really want to hear from them. So you go ahead and introduce these two amazing people.
Okay, wonderful. Let me introduce Dr. Linda Mead-Tolan, because I know that she's also short on time. So, Linda, I know you do better at introducing yourself. She is just like the most amazing and intelligent woman that I know. But here she is, Dr. Linda Mead-Tolan, inventor of the Warburg Way.
I hope I've got this set right. Can you hear me?
We
Yes,
can.
thank
You
you.
look great.
Okay. I am a biochemist and received my PhD from the City University of New York and my master's degree from Hunter College. I've been at the university from 1975 to 2008. I was a member of the Cancer Center, and I trained and did a postdoc in the lab of the Chief Scientific Officer of the Cancer Center. I was focusing on angiogenesis and the growth of blood vessels in cancer and developing an assay for different natural compounds to see if they enhanced or inhibited angiogenesis. And one of my friends, who was also a graduate student in the Chief Scientific Officer's laboratory, came to me one day and began to talk about collaboration on a project. And that has grown into the Warburg Way, which has tremendous potential for affordably treating cancer worldwide. I would say that we have just published a paper in Cancer Medicine to establish the safety of the technique using, it was done on 271 patients, 8,542 treatments. And one of our preliminary results that I'd like to follow up on is that it does much less harm to the immune system than the traditional cancer drugs. Traditional cancer drugs often have a one focus. They attack rapidly growing cells. They are not aimed at the Achilles heel that the Warburg Way is aimed at. So at this present time, we are working with our Chinese colleagues and are developing more publications, but we also are offering the Warburg Way in over 50 medical facilities in China, as well as 2 on this side of the globe. I'm also very passionate about the Warburg Way. It solves some of the problems of cancer treatment in that it's much more affordable uh, uh, than the traditional cancer treatments with drugs that have taken billions of dollars, multiple years to develop, and then 3 or more years to get out of the um, clinics and trials and into actual practice with the doctors. And I'd be willing to answer whatever questions I can. It is still a work in progress, but it is a work that works for many, many people. And I'm
Thank you.
really proud to be associated with it.
Thank you so much. That's really amazing to see that progress. Um, and Martha, you want to introduce Mike? Oh, you're muted.
I'll
Now
just
you can
go.
hear me. Perfect. Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Mike.
First of all, my apologies. I'm not cool enough to have a webcam, so you don't get to see me, and I'm not much to look at, so don't worry. Um, yeah, I am Michael Painter, one of the co-inventors, along with Linda here and Tom Singh, and we all met up at the Arizona Cancer Center where we worked. And I helped invent this. I worked for Tom in his company, and we worked together on some projects in the Cancer Center itself. And I'm one of the scientists that worked on this, and I'm here to answer some questions if anybody has them.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Sure.
I have questions, but I want to let other people talk. So, Becky, Carol, Marilyn, any of you guys have questions? Okay. Carol, did you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So what are the normal, or not normal, but what are the main side effects that a patient would get from these from this Warburg method? I know everybody's different, so not everybody, but what are the, most consistent side effects that happen going through this treatment?
I think
Mike, you want
Stephanie,
to answer that?
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah.
perfect.
In addition to being a inventor, I'm also a patient. I unfortunately, over 14 years ago, got tooth cancer, which is incredibly rare. And you're talking incident rates in 1 out of 1 million. So it's very rare, but I've had it myself. And the side effects that I get is just mostly, okay, during that treatment, you get hypoglycemia. And sometimes you just get sleepy, maybe a little sweaty, a little fuzzy in the brain. You're not thinking super sharp because you're just getting tired. So I can just get tired. Afterwards, there's some fatigue. And you might also get some mild diarrhea. It's nothing severe. And it's nothing that requires any kind of medical intervention per se. Now we have some you'll get rather nauseous. I think that may be more connected to their cancer themselves or psychological issues. And people get cancer and they're very not happy. So there's some anti-nausea medicines that can sometimes be given. I only ever needed it once, and I don't know how many treatments I had. Probably over 50, maybe 100. I don't know. Martha may know. So it's actually very well tolerated. We always have low grade side effects. So nothing that ever really requires hospitalization or anything severe.
Yeah. And I can echo that. When your blood sugar's lowered, that's kind of the worst of it is that 30 minutes where you're kind of it's I mean, as a woman I can say it's kind of like menopausal sweating. You kind of have this, you're cold though. I felt cold. I would get really sweaty. I would literally soak through a cotton shirt, and I'm not someone who really sweats very much normally. And yeah, you're kind of woozy. It's not a good time to make, like it's 30 minutes, but like yeah, you're kind of not able to really have like a very intelligent conversation. And then yeah, the first week I was fine. I felt great. Like I had 4 treatments and they were strong. because I had 2 chemo agents and then I had the 5FU. And my understanding is that 5FU is synergistic and you know what? Actually, tell us a little bit about the 5FU because it was really like, even though the 2 agents were the ones on my RGC panel that had a very high kill rate, 5FU had a very low kill rate, but yet Dr. Bavacqua and Marta were like, no, 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 you need the 5FU. And so you want to explain, does Michael or Linda want to explain that? Or
Mike?
Marta?
I'll defer to Linda, or otherwise I can answer.
Well, 5FU is a drug that has been used in the clinic for about 60 years or more. And the synergistic effects, I think, are probably quite individual.
Linda, can
Yeah.
you explain to us, because I know that why we always use 5FU and like where in the life cycle it helps or the reasons why we use the drugs that we use, either you or Mike can explain that to everyone here.
I mean, I can explain if you like. Now, 5FU, it's a it interferes with the folate pathway, which is responsible for DNA synthesis repair, but it also causes oxidative stress when that pathway gets shut down, which can lead to cellular apoptosis, which is the cell itself dying on its own. So that's part of it. It's also a very short half-life, so we're able to give quite a bit of drug in a very short period of time in there. Now, normal chemotherapy regimens that use 5FU will give it over a long period of time, sometimes up to 48 hours. So we're kind of getting not a huge amount of drug that's going to cause a lot of side effects, but within that narrow window of hypoglycemia, we're giving quite a good amount of drug that's actually going to cause a lot of oxidative stress and kill these cancer cells. One thing to mention about those drug panels you get from the blood test, those are done on circulating cancer cells. Those are in a different environment than your solid tumors. So while that information, you can get some good information from those blood tests, they're not actually representative of cancer within that solid milieu of the tumor itself. You're pulling cells out of the blood. So I'm not always convinced that you're getting the best information from what's happening to those circulating cancer cells that were sent halfway across the world and shipping, and then they test them. So yeah, we still like 5FU because it's going to affect that folate pathway. It's going to cause some oxidative stress. So it's always going to have some effect on all cancer cells,
And its
regardless of what the
half-life,
panel says.
and its half-life, as you say, it clears quickly. It has a shorter half-life.
Yeah. That was my understanding, is that it would have a synergistic effect and it just makes the treatment more effective. And I understand that. I've done a lot of education in supplements and nutraceuticals, and it's the same in nutraceuticals where you bring the two together and they're more powerful, and the body, it's just more effective in the body. So that's really cool. Becky or Marilyn, do you guys have questions?
I'm just thankful to be here. Stephanie, you and I have known each other for many years. We've met through the wellness community, and I can't say anything but amazing things about this lady here that's hosting this event. You know, her faith, her fortitude, and I was just so blessed to see that she got the help she needed. And like she was saying, the combination of many factors, she had so built up her body over the years to be able to battle it, but needed a little extra help. So thank you all, the doctors, the nurse, everybody that contributed towards helping her. So glad to hear more about it. So
Yeah.
glad to be here.
Th-
Thanks.
Thank you, Becky.
Stephanie, I do have another question. This is Carol.
Good. Yeah, go for it.
So Michael and Linda, are you saying that the circulating cancer cells are not necessarily coming from a tumor-based cancer? If that's the case, then what is a tumor-based cancer shedding? How would we know that that was in our body?
Okay,
Go ahead, Mike.
they absolutely are coming from the tumor, but they're
Yes.
now but they're now in the blood, circulating in the blood. So they're in a
Different
different environment in
Yeah.
the blood as opposed to a solid tumor, is the point. And cells in a different environment have different signaling going on. They have a different survival profile. Additionally, you're shipping them overseas, and that process itself weakens them. So while something that really gets at these cells will show up in that profile, they may not necessarily respond the same when you're doing it in the body in a solid tumor.
Yeah, and he's referring to the RGC panel that I was talking about, Carol. Go ahead,
And
Linda.
I was just going to say that a very hot area of research right now is the effect of the tumor environment on the tumor cells. And the tumor cells are exposed to many different types of cells which enhance or inhibit different activities in the tumor cells. And so the knowledge of what environment they are in and how that affects their invasiveness or their metastatic ability or their survival or their activity is quite different from that seen with cells that are just circulating free in the blood.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And because they found the cancer in lymph nodes close to where my tumor was, that means that I had stage 3 cancer. And so that, for me personally, I would very much go back and get more treatments, even though my blood work is showing normal.
Mhm.
Right now we're just navigating doctor's bills and trying to figure out how, because the Warburg is so economical compared to the cost of if I had done the radiation and other things like that.
Mhm.
And yet I'm struggling to afford it because I'm
Yeah.
navigating I'm navigating what I've already done. My hysterectomy was $100,000 and my insurance company is only covering half of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a catch-22.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
would like to say that ever since almost the beginning of the Warburg Way, there have been people who really wish that they could take it as a preventative measure. Nowadays, there is a Galleria test which will tell you for, I think it's now down to about $1,500 or something like that. They
No,
look at
it's 799. I just had it done,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Good.
Okay.
and it came
And
back. It came back no cancer. So
the Galleria test captures circulating tumor cells in the blood. And I think they say that they can even tell you where the tumor cells originated. But
yes.
after that, it is your job to go to your oncologist and decide whether or not you're going to try to treat it or start any treatment in any way.
Yes.
So even though all of our patients are predominantly late stage and advanced stages of cancer, it is a sequence of events that I've considered myself doing the Galleria test or not, and doing preventative measures or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is a Galleria test identifying cancer before it's possibly diagnosed through blood, through other blood
Well,
tests?
they claim that yes,
Okay. Yeah.
it's used as a screening procedure,
Okay.
and the interesting thing is that they say in many cases they can tell where the cells originated by pathology.
Okay. And I'm so glad, Carol, that it came back clear.
Yes.
Yes.
That is super exciting.
Yes.
Now, Carol, what have you done about your cancer? What are some things that have been helpful to you?
Mine has mainly been diet. Just low carbs or no carbs, low sugar. Eating less, exercising more. Basically, that. I mean, and then doing the Galleria test, and of course going for all my follow-ups. But mainly it's diet and exercise. Yeah.
Okay. That's
Exercise is very important.
yeah.
I'd like to add something. A lot of people will ask, like, when do you do the Warburg way, or can it be done preventative, like Linda was talking about? And ideally, you do Warburg way if you're going to be getting a biopsy or an operation, and to check if it's cancer. Like, so you do it before any kind of biopsy, because this way you can kill any cancer cells that are very metastatic before you have a cut, before you have any kind of surgery or intrusion that can make that cancer spread. So ideally, you would do it before any biopsies or any surgeries, to cut off the cancer if it's there, if they think you have it. Then you would do it after surgery to get any cancer that might have moved or gone anywhere. And then the follow-up as far as the Warburg would be very similar to when you get your checkups, after the cancer has been removed. So if you get a few Warburg ways at the 3-month stage, because the doctor will see you every 3 months for the first year, and then every 6 months the second year, and then every year thereafter for 5 years, and then say, okay, now you are cancer-free. So during those same time periods, you can do Warburg ways to make sure that you can keep everything in check, or mainly, as Linda said, as a preventative measure. We have one patient, and again, these are stories that I can tell you from actual patients. We have a patient that she would go every year to get her checkup. And like whenever she'd go back to the Mayo Clinic catch up, it's like, oh, now you have cancer here. Boom, they would do radiation or surgery, something. And then it was like, okay, it's gone. And this would happen every time she would go back. So 5 years ago, she started with us, and she comes down once a year, and they never found cancer after that. So she'll come down once a year and either do 6 to 8 treatments, usually during the summer, and she has been cancer-free since. Like, they've never found it again.
Wow.
We've had some people that have done it as preventative, and when they ask me, I'm like, well, personally, like if I had the gallery and it said me that I was, that I could have cancer, or if it was in the family where like your sister, your aunt, your mother, etc. So there's lots of cancer in the family, I would, then I personally would do it. But if there were no indications, then I probably wouldn't. But again, that's just me. And in that same stance, my husband was just diagnosed with prostate cancer. So I'm very glad that I'm with the Warburg way, and I feel very safe. But the doctors were saying, we don't think it's cancer, but his PSA was high despite medicine, et cetera. So I was still scared, and I was asking the questions. And I also asked, when you do this, will you take it to pathology? And they're like, oh yeah, it's just standard that we do it, but we don't think it's cancer. And of course, first thing I do is I call, Linda, Mike, and Tom. And the answer was like, Mike knows, call Mike. And Mike said, Martha, do it. If he has cancer, it's going to help him because, you get the metastatic cancer out of the way, or you kill the cancer and all. If he doesn't, it's not going to hurt him. He's going to be uncomfortable, like Stephanie said, he's going, and he was tired, he was sweaty, he was starving because, you go fasting. So like all of those things happened. And of course, I asked him for $1 million, but, he wasn't out of it that much that he gave it to me if he had it, which he doesn't. But so, so he had all those effects, but, he didn't kill him. And then we come back from the surgery, and a month later, we go into the ER, and the doctor comes in and says, oh, you're probably because of the cancer. And I'm going like, what cancer? So that's how we found out. So his pathology came back with cancer, but it came back with only 5%. So he's not being taken, everything's just kind of like, oh, let's just wait and see. It's not enough cancer. I personally couldn't say I did the Warburg way because I didn't want to be kicked out, and I need the studies and I want to know what's there, and have insurance pay for those studies, not out of pocket. So I didn't say we did the Warburg way, because I've had a lot of my patients be kicked out of doctors' offices because they're going in a direction that is not what they were being told, or they were going into the holistic approach, etc. So I don't want that to happen until I have more answers. And right now we're still in a waiting phase because his cancer is so low that he's not urgent to get studies. So now we have to wait another 2 months just to get studies. But I feel very comfortable, like I said, because I've seen Warburg way work, because we did 4 treatments before his surgery, and we've done 4 treatments post-surgery. So I just wanted to share that with you, that, how the Warburg way gets done or how many treatments most people get.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. Any other questions?
How long does each treatment take? So you're fasting before each treatment? And how long are you fasting?
So we want people to fast for about 8 hours. Our treatments normally are at 10 a.m. So somebody will have their dinner and then does not eat anything. You can have water. You can actually have green tea without sugar in it, but mainly water. So you don't want to intake any food. Then you come in at 10 a.m. and you've fasted, probably for, at least, 10 hours. The treatment itself will be a maximum of 1 hour after your blood sugar has lowered. So in total, maybe an hour and 20 minutes or less, because sometimes the body will just automatically bring the sugar up, like your body's like, no, I don't want to be here, and might bring it up in 40 minutes instead of an hour. At that time, you can have some food. And with that, your body will come back to its normal stages or start making, its glucose and starting stabilizing you. And that's when the treatment is over. So the treatment itself is an hour, but you'd probably be spending an hour and a half to 2 hours at our clinic. Some people like to stay there and take a nap, and some people will jump up and go.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Well, thank you so much. I absolutely am so thankful and appreciative of all of you giving your time. Ernesto, Dr. Navarro, Dr. Linda, and Dr. Mike, oh my gosh, I really appreciate you guys giving us your time and your expertise. And thank you for your passion. Thank you that this is not just about research and about numbers. This is about people and getting better outcomes. And I will definitely be praying that you guys get the credibility that you need as far as the paperwork. We know it's just paperwork. And I already know people have reached out to me, and there's a group of people, investors, that are wanting to get it in India and Thailand. And, how crazy would it be if we could actually, get it around available more often? And so I referred them to Marta, but I guess I should be referring them to you, Linda or Mike. We'll see. But at this point right now, it's just about spreading the word and letting people know there are other options, and, giving them a chance to maybe catch it sooner, maybe not wait until their oncologist has, gone through all their efforts. I am super thankful for Fox Chase. They did not kick me out. I told them right away I was doing something different, and they didn't kick me out. So I'm very thankful that they've been working with me. So, well, you guys have an awesome weekend, and I will send everybody the recording. And please share it. Let people know there are other options. And these are complementary options. And we can find oncologists and wonderful people in our medical community that will partner with us. So you guys take care.
Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Oh, thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot,
Stephanie.
Carol.
Thank you.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
you.
Stephanie.
Bye-bye.